we've been on the road now for about 3 months, and these are the top 5 things that have really stood out that we are loving, and also the top 5 things that maybe we do a bit differently in our next build.
So, our number one thing that we really love that we did to the bus when we did the conversion is a roof raise. It's a really big undertaking. You know, it adds a bit of cost and time to the build, but I think it's really well worth it. I'm not particularly tall, I'm about 5'8", but I can reach up and touch the roof, and that's with 4 inches of insulation in the floor and 3 inches in the ceiling. So not only does it give you this big open space, but it also lets you put extra insulation into the build, and yeah, it just really opens up and makes it a much nicer living space. Number 2, which is sort of an add-on from the roof raise, is you can raise the floor in certain parts of the bus. So our roof raise was 12 inches. So in the back here, I've raised the floor around 8 inches, and that's just given us this whole area here, which access through this little trapdoor, where I keep tools, spare parts, little bits and pieces. But it's really great. And then in here, you start to get down on your height a little bit, but it's still comfortable enough. Also reduces the step up into our bed. Another bonus with that roof raise is also the under bed storage. You obviously gain some space in that. You can lift your bed slightly higher to the ceiling. Under there we have our freshwater tank, our electrics, and we can fit 2 mountain bikes, a kayak, and a whole bunch of other stuff if we really wanted to jam it in there. But so yeah, they're number 1. Number 2.
The third thing that we were really happy with is the washer-dryer combo unit. We were sort of on the fence to whether we would add it or not, and we decided to go with it. Oppie uses reusable diapers, so we have to wash those probably every 3 to 5 days, and by the time you pay for the laundromat, you probably pay this off in about a year. So we're super happy that we went with it. It does use a bit of water, about 7 to 18 gallons depending on which cycle you use. We just always use the express one, which uses around 12 gallons, but we haven't had any issues with that so far. But yeah, really happy we added that.
So this is number 4 on our list that we're really glad we added to the bus, and that's the Pioneer Mini Split. It really just makes a huge difference when you're in those warmer climates, being able to cool the space down. We've used it on the heater function for a few nights before we left Oregon when it was still slightly cold. That worked great as well, but really the fact that we can cool the bus down, having a 6-month-old daughter, just being able to make her comfortable to sleep at night time. We also have it on when we're driving sometimes, and it doesn't fully cool down the front of the bus as well as you'd maybe like, but it definitely takes the edge off and makes it much more comfortable up there. So when you're driving, that can be a real game changer. You get a lot of that road heat and the engine heat inside the bus, so that makes a big difference. Definitely glad we added that.
The 5th thing that we are really happy with that we added to our build is a really big bathroom. Sometimes living in small spaces, you have to compromise with spaces or areas like this, and we don't really feel like we had to. Before moving into the bus, we actually lived with my grandparents, and I think their shower was probably smaller than ours, so we're really stoked with this. Oppie has plenty of room. Sometimes she'll come into the shower and just crawl around on the floor in here. Yeah, but there's lots of space, which is really nice, and yeah, super happy with the big bathroom.
So our number 1 thing that we're not super happy with the build is the size of our grey water tank. It's 50 gallons. It's sort of sufficient for a few days, but with the washing machine, a few loads and showers, it can really fill up quite quickly. And with the idea of wanting to be off grid for as long as possible, it's a bit of a downer. It's a challenge when you're finding space underneath the bus to work out where a tank will fit, along with fuel tanks, exhaust pipes, underbody storage boxes, etc. So you sort of have to just work with what you can. And back here we've got quite a big space. We could have gone slightly bigger, but then the other thing you run into is finding a tank that actually fits that space. And you know, you can get custom made tanks and you can really look around, but yeah, we went with 50 gallons. That's something that would change.
The second thing we might do differently is add another window to this back space. When we drew the bus out, we knew that we were only going to have 1 window back here, and we knew it might make it a little bit dark, and we thought that would be okay. But as Oppie gets older, we'll probably add a wall here between her bed and our bed, and that will really make her space pretty dark. You can see without the lights, that gets dark pretty quickly. It's not a big deal, but yeah, I guess retrospect, we might add another window if we were going to do it differently.
The third thing that would change if we were to do this again is where we put our electrical system. So in the back here, we've got our freshwater tank on one side and our electrics on the other side. Works fairly well for weight distribution. But when you're doing the build, it's really hard to go, this is going to fit here, this is going to fit there, when you're sort of just making up in your head and doing slight sketches. And with the idea of doing spray foam, you run all your wires before you put anything inside the bus. So you've really got to choose where you want to have the electrics and run all your wires to there. So to keep it simple, I just went, this is a big space I know we're going to have, and I put our electrics under the bed here. Super easy for working on, gives it plenty of breathing space, but I really wish we had that extra storage on this side that we could use for other items. Like the kayak in the middle of our bikes here isn't ideal. The only other spot we could have probably made it work was under the couch, but it would have been very tight and I wouldn't have quite known it was going to fit until it did or didn't. So that's something we'd look into working out a bit better for next time.
The fourth thing that we would probably change is our composting toilet. It is a really good product. It's an Airhead, and yeah, we do love it, but I think maybe next time we try to build our own and make it a bit user-friendly for the space. Right now we have to empty the liquids container every 1 to 2 days, and the solids probably every 10 days. But we do only just use our toilet. I know lots of other people will use public restrooms when they can, and we don't really do that. We only use our toilet. But that is something we might change, is try and build our own next time.
So the fifth and final thing that we'd change if we were to do this again is the space around our bed. So if you look here, you can sort of just get your fingers down the front here, and it's almost that the whole way around. I think when I was doing my measurements, I gave myself an extra inch or two, but 1 or 2 more inches would have been ideal. Obviously, a few more things might have slipped down the side, but when you're trying to get a bed sheet on, it's quite awkward. So you're trying to tuck down into this narrow little hole here, and this back corner is even worse. So it's not the end of the world, but if you like to change your bed sheets regularly, it's something that will constantly be a bit of an irritation. So I know it's all down to inches when you're doing these builds, but give yourself a little extra space around your bed.
Obviously, we just touched on these things really briefly, but if you have any questions about anything that we've talked about, go ahead and drop them in the comments and we'll get back to you.